Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and today we're going to be making a buttercream cake. For those of you that aren't a fan of fondant, you'll definitely like this tutorial because there's not a piece of fondant in sight. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with crumb coating and filling our cake. I'm just using my Italian meringue buttercream and my favorite chocolate cake recipe. Now you'll notice that I'm only doing one layer of thick filling in the center, and then I'm going nice and thick on the top as well here. The reason being because this particular cake recipe is very fluffy and moist, so I was afraid that if I cut it in half it might fall apart. So rather than trying to mess around with that, I am just going to do a thicker layer of filling in the center. When applying your crumb coat, it's really important to put on enough frosting. If you don't do that, then you can end up scraping the cake and you'll get more bits off of the cake than you would like to. Also, I always recommend that you use metal tools instead of plastic, just because I find that you get a nice, sharp, crisp line with metal. You can really do as many coats of frosting as you would like until everything is fully covered. Just make sure that in between each coat, you at least leave it in the fridge for about 10 minutes or so before applying another coat. When I first started watching cake tutorials in general, I was always really amazed at this whole process, and I never could understand why mine never really worked out. Now, if you are struggling with crumb coating or covering your cake completely with buttercream, the reason could just be that you're using a different type of buttercream. So for example, if you use American buttercream, it applies very differently. So really, you just have to keep going. The rule with all buttercreams and ganaches is basically apply your coat, put it in the fridge, and try again. I really wanted to mix up modern and classic with this cake, so I'm taking this green buttercream and just applying it on kind of like how I did for my watercolor buttercream cake, but I'm applying it a little bit more perfectly this time around. I'm just kind of having like an ombre dotted effect all the way around, and then I'm just smoothing that buttercream in however it smooths in. I'm not really being too picky about it. Parts of the top of the cake are going to show. So if you want to make it really perfectly all green, then do that. But if you want to achieve the same look that I'm achieving, just dot it randomly and then smooth it out. Now I will say that the underneath portion is quite cold, so that's why you'll notice that things aren't mixing in that much. Time to get started on this first flower here. So this tip is really kind of curved, but it is a petal tip, and this is a smaller one. There's a larger one that you can get as well in the same shape, but I find the smaller one is great for making smaller flowers. You'll notice I created that little base underneath. This is a crucial part if you just want to pick up your flowers with the scissors afterwards. I used to never do this, and I couldn't figure out why every time I tried to pick up the flower, it just fell apart. So what you're actually going to be doing once you're done the flower is you're going to be taking your scissors and you're going to be clamping it around that base portion. And then you just lift off and put it directly on your cake. Now with all flowers, you kind of follow the same rule of thumb. With this rose, I'm doing just little rainbow arcs all the way around. If you wanted that rose to be a little bit more closed, then you would kind of face the tip more inward and not bring it outward. There are so many different ways of making buttercream flowers. If you want it to look a little bit more free, then you can wiggle the tips a little bit. That way your petal looks a little bit more crinkled, but I wanted my petals to be a little bit more smooth, so that's why I'm just doing really smooth motions. I'm creating what's called an English rose here, and it's a little bit tricky to tell with the angles, so I might remake a video one day showing you from a more bird's eye view so you can really see what I'm doing with this particular flower. But what you're really doing is you're creating 5 petals in the center, and then you kind of go around each petal like that, and then you're going to create large swoops all the way around. Now, if you don't have one of those fancy flower nails, then you can put your roses directly onto your cake. I don't know why I do this every single time, but it's probably wise if you put this type of flower on first so that you don't have to run into any dangers of possibly hitting the other flowers. Now, if you want all of those swirly type of colors, really just mix your buttercream up. You can also do the trick where you put 2 colors or 3 colors even in saran wrap first, and then you kind of roll it all together and stick the whole thing into the piping bag. I'm also adding in some of those rosettes just with a classic 1M tip. If you know how to pipe a cupcake, then you probably know how to pipe that rosette as well. I also ended up piping some swags as well. This is royal icing that I am using. When you're piping the swags, it's a little bit tricky, so I actually just added those in as an afterthought. So I will do a separate video showing you how to make those swags at a later date. For some contrast, I decided to use a nice deep green, and I just used a leaf green, but I added a lot of food coloring to this to get that nice deep color. I am using a bit of a fancier leaf tip. You'll notice that it's not just your typical leaf tip that's basically like a V, so you can go ahead and add as many leaves as you see fit. So I added the swags and the florals for that classic feel, but now I want to bring that modern feel right back in there. So I'm adding some gold leaf just a little bit down the center of the cake, and I added a few little pearls to the swags as well. I also ended up splattering the sides of the cake with a little bit of edible gold paint. I love the way this turned out. I was a little bit iffy about the color palette at first, but I think the gold really brought it all together for me. Now let's get into the pricing for this cake. This cake takes up a lot of buttercream, so a lot of that price is attributed to that as well as the edible gold leaf. Now, ordinarily, I don't think I would put this in stock, but if I were, I think I'd base that stock price off of the fact that I would add something special to this as well, like a nameplate or something like that. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys.